Opening remarks here, start off with the injury front. Got out of the Eastern Washington game relatively healthy. A couple of minor things that I think will not affect us, especially with the bye week coming up. I think Logan dinged his shoulder a little bit on one of the kickoff returns, and but the good news is I think we're going to get Chad out of that brace coming off the bye, and I think he's been obviously a warrior for us and has done some tremendous things, but I do think that he's been limited a little bit at times in terms of his ability to accelerate, and we're looking forward to, and I know he's looking forward to getting out of that thing and get some opportunity to be refreshed, and that's one of the positives about a late bye. You are definitely beat up regardless of who you are at this time in the season, and for us in particular on the D-line, I do think that we'll get an opportunity to get Tucker back after the bye week, which I think will be a really important addition for us as we go down the stretch, and so I think that, the Dylan Mahoney thing, keeping our fingers crossed, but it may be another week past the Southern Utah game. But I do think that he will play at least down the stretch for us in a couple of games, and that's kind of it. I think everything else kind of got out of there fairly healthy. Played a lot of snaps on defense, but our guys kind of came out of that okay. I could tell we were gassed a little bit when you got to rush the passer as much as we did. I think we missed some opportunities based on that lack of depth that we have on the D-line. We're trying to roll those guys as much as we can, but when you're chasing that guy around 60 plus times in a game, I think that shows up after a while, and so that conditioning factor a little bit with some fatigue, some heavy legs, especially with those guys on the D-line that have had to play so many reps for us in the last month of the season. And so, played a really good team, and I know this is going to sound crazy when I say this, because you're going to look at me and go, well, yeah, but you did this and you did this. But after watching the film, the best quarter of football that we played all year as a team in all three phases was the third quarter of that game. We came out and we got a 3-and-out, which not very many people do against Eastern Washington, especially in the second half. We drove down the field. We turned the ball over on the 20-yard line. They didn't stop us a lick. I mean, it was like a hot knife through butter coming down the field, running the football. Thought Courtney did an awesome job. We were in our 30 personnel stuff, and we were kind of checking at the line of scrimmage and just looking where the number advantage was, and we took advantage of it. The ball went to Nick a couple of times based on that. And then they, hey, we turn the ball over. They take the ball straight down the field. We block a field goal. We take the ball all the way back down, turn the ball over again. They get the ball, they come down and score. Well, you want to lay down? No, we get a 65-yard kickoff return. And so I thought, even though kind of like I said, that you take away, you can't take away those 5 or 6 plays in a game, but you look at what we were able to achieve against a team like Eastern, who really has been an outstanding second half team, and I thought we actually played better defense in the second half than we did in the first half. I thought, even though the numbers might not bear it out because they hit some shots down the field, I think we got after the quarterback. We tackled better. I think there were some real positive things from that. And we've got to find a way to not turn the football over. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I was telling Courtney, so we got to stop talking about this because it becomes a kind of one of those deals where the more you talk about it, the more it happens. And the kids are processing it that way. And so we just need to emphasize it in practice, not talk about turning the ball over, talk about making good decisions. Change the verbiage maybe, and that'll change the outcome. And so those are some of the things that we're discussing, and looking forward, like I said, to getting this bye weekend and get an opportunity to let the young guys play a whole bunch. We have some old dogs that really don't need to take a lot of reps, and just go two days a week this week. Just go Tuesday and Wednesday. Have a good lift on Tuesday and Thursday. Give them Friday, Saturday off, and then come back with a pretty healthy practice on Sunday.
You mentioned the offense. Was there something you could point to? It seemed like they were in a better rhythm, better everything, execution. What was working so well on Saturday?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we've kind of gotten better over the last 3 weeks. I mean, if you really just think about it from the perspective of finding that rhythm on offense, and a big part of it is really knowing what Chris can do. And you can see when we get back into drop back situations, that's not his thing. I mean, we can dial up shots, and he knows exactly where he's going with the ball. He feels pretty comfortable, but once it's kind of going through that progression, that's a problem for him a little bit still in terms of just the speed of the game and how quickly that decision needs to be made. And when you run the ball as efficiently as we did on first down, that helps a ton as well. And I think that we've done that, with the exception of some self-inflicted wounds, whether it be penalties or turnovers. And in this game, I don't think they were going to stop us running the ball. I mean, I think we got ourselves behind the sticks on some penalty situations, and that forced us to do some things that maybe were a little bit different than what the plan was at times. And obviously, we can't give them the football. They're too good of a football team.
Jeff, what would you like to get accomplished this week in your bye week?
Get some guys healthy, get some young guys a lot of reps. put in some preliminary game plan stuff for Southern Utah so that we can kind of hit the ground running when we get back on Sunday. And I think just a lot of competitive situations, doing some competition, kind of almost like a fall camp type routine, spring ball type routine in terms of a heavy emphasis on fundamentals, letting our young guys get a bunch of chances to go play actual football, and put ourselves in a lot of competitive situations, whether it's situational football or doing a tug of war, something where those guys just have to go compete.
Do you envision Gunner playing both ways down the stretch?
It kind of depends on the matchup, I would say that maybe there could possibly be something for him in the Southern Utah plan. Really, with Davis's style, probably not. But again, maybe against Montana. So here's the way I look at this: is this is a 3-game season, and we have an opportunity to go 1-0 for 3 weeks, and that's what we have to do. And the amount of momentum that it would create for us going into the off season, and the confidence that it would create for some of our young guys, the momentum in recruiting, I think all of those things are extremely important. And we're going to do whatever we have to do to get our best 11 guys on the field to give ourselves an opportunity. And I think there's some places where he can help us.
I guess you touched on recruiting a little bit. How big of a week is it going to be for you guys recruiting-wise?
Yeah, we've got out and it's not a contact period, it's still an evaluation period. And so really in state, we've kind of touched all the guys that we can go see. At least we can only see them one time during the evaluation period. And so we're going to try to get some guys out of state. We're sending somebody to California. We've got a number of young men in southwestern Idaho, Boise area that we're recruiting, and so we're going to send somebody there. And then in the I-5 corridor, we'll send somebody there. And so it's we've utilized our home games a lot early in the season to get out and see a lot of the Montana kids, and so we're going to try to get out and kind of just touch base mostly with guys that are committed to us and guys that we feel like are close to get that one other opportunity to spend some time with them.
Jeff, what do you think of Nick Lasane's performance?
I thought he had a great day. I think it was 5 carries, 85 yards. I thought, again, the way things set up with he, Chad, and Gunner in the backfield with Chris, there's 4 guys that you got to defend. And pick your poison, right? So, but the way the numbers lined up, they're trying to take Chad or they're trying to take Chris away. Well, the numbers line up for the plays that can go to Nick in that situation. And I thought he took advantage of him. I thought he ran the ball with authority. And so it was nice to see him get an opportunity to kind of have a little bit of a breakout there.
You mentioned Goober and his mobility. You guys were a lot of 3-man rush, but it seemed like you were winning some one-on-ones, but then not getting home. What's the next step? What do you think of this initial one-on-one?
Yeah, it was probably the most frustrating part of the game, Coulter. It was just like, I don't think that we're like out of this world pass rushers by any stretch of the imagination. I think that's an area where we can make a lot of improvement. But we were winning one-on-ones against their guys. And the difference was the quarterback's ability to slide and move in the pocket. And we had chances. And I think one of the things that stood out to me was our lack of lower body strength. That's a place where we can really develop. I think that's a big part of that finishing in tackles. When you've got a superior athlete, you flatten out and feint at their feet. That ain't going to work. You got to have the strength to drive through that and continue to move your feet as you're tackling, whether it's the quarterback, whether it's a receiver in space or a running back. And so I think those were the things that were maddening. A lot of those third downs, you've got plenty of chances, whether it's with the quarterback or if we can just force him to get rid of the football. There wasn't anybody open at that moment. And as the play develops and continues, the scramble drill occurs. And they've done that a few times, obviously. And they've got some really good players. And so, that was hard to take, as hard as those guys were playing, to be just, inches away. And they go make a play. That's the measuring stick. You go, okay, that's what we got to do. We've got to start to, be more efficient in our scrambling. It wasn't like, by design, we're giving them some stuff, especially early in the game. And as the game wore on, they were creating, and I have to credit them for that. But I also think that what we did was we took away the things that they wanted to do. And so a lot of the stuff, especially their explosive plays in the second half, came outside of their offense. It wasn't like they were dropping back and diming us up. So I think that was a credit to them and their athleticism and their ability to create outside the offense a little bit. I think that's where this young man's a little bit different than maybe some of the other quarterbacks they've had at Eastern.
What do you think maybe your biggest challenge is going forward as a head coach and with your coaching staff? Do you think it's making sure you guys give max effort each week? Or?
Yeah, I do. I think that's an interesting, it's like that was probably one of the things that was so frustrating about that Weber State game was I felt like up to that point in time, and I felt like we kind of got back to that on Saturday in terms of, hey, this is who we are. These guys are maybe here a little bit on talent, but we can close that gap with effort and energy. And I think our guys understand that. but that is always a challenge. Is how do you have those guys at the peak of their performance and their ability to give great maximum effort and focus every single Saturday. And so, as painful as that Weber State situation might have been, I think it exposed some things that our guys understand that if we don't bring this level of energy and effort and intensity to the table, this is what can happen. And you know, that's going to be interesting because it's hard. I haven't been to Cedar City, Utah. I don't know, but I know that it sounds like it's you know, it's a tough travel trip. I think we're staying at Bryan Head, and then we travel down the day of the game, and it's a little bit different in that regard. It's a you know, a little bit more like Sac State probably than it is going to Montana State for a game in terms of the energy and the crowd, although I think they've done a nice job, especially coming off the conference championship, of really supporting that program. But we haven't played well on the road, and so that's something that we've got to pay attention to and bring that energy.
Go ahead, Parker.
Last week, Wednesday after practice, Luke Daly was out on the field just punting. He's 8 months out of surgery. What's his status with the program?
He's still suspended indefinitely until I get some. I didn't know he was out there, so.
It was everyone was out, but he was just out on his own.
No, yeah, no, he's more than welcome to do that, and he's still on scholarship here. He takes advantage of training facilities and those kind of things, but there's still some things pending with him that we can't discuss.
Defensive line with Tucker out, what did you think of the guys on the interior the last couple of weeks? Did you see any progress from guys like Brownlow and Val and Brandon?
Foe didn't play a lot in this game by design. We really kind of tried to. I mean, really, it was McCarthy, you know, Grant Collins, Jesse, Zach Wright, and Brownlow were kind of the guys that we rotated, just because that's the guys we felt like had the athleticism to be able to work within the scheme that we had. And I thought those guys did a nice job of operating within the scheme. I really do. I mean, we've got to finish plays. I mean, we had opportunities at that quarterback. I mean, it's maddening. And, you know, the more you watch it, the more frustrated and you get sometimes. But I think those guys get what we're trying to do. And I just think you give those guys the way we're going to train around here. And if you look at our freshmen and the way they've developed, the guys that are redshirting, I mean, there's guys like Kyle Marak from Conrad, who, when he came in here 4 months ago, you know, looked like, you know, a beanpole, and now he's starting to, you know, get some bumps on his arms, and, you know, it's looking pretty good. And if we can get these guys to train the way we want them to train for an off season, I think we're going to be good. And because they're going to be mature, they're going to have gone through these battles, and they're going to get what we want them to do. And I feel very strongly that our staff has done a good job of putting our kids in a position to win. I think we've put together good plans. I don't think we've been out-coached. You know, I think there's times when we've been out-athleted, but, you know, I mean, you asked Bo what he thought of how we defended them. I don't think they want to see that against a team that has better talent than we do. So.
On the end, looks like Woody and Derek have been getting a little bit more snaps. What have you seen at that position?
Yeah, well, you know, Woody's an interesting character because he's got some snap to him, you know, and you not necessarily know what the heck he's doing all the time, which he shouldn't after being out there for a limited amount of time. But Woody's a really good football player, you know, and you know, Derek is a guy that is not physically developed because he's a true freshman, but he's if you could put those two guys' bodies together, you'd really have something, because Derek is really kind of a student of the game, technician, very sound, understands what we're trying to get accomplished, how to attack protections. For a young guy, he's got a really good feel for that, and Woody's just raw and explosive. And so it's kind of one of those deals where you're mixing and matching a little bit with those two guys, and when you get the right combination out there, it can go pretty good. And so like what those guys have been able to give us, and just need to keep getting more out of them.
Do you feel like that's a permanent move for Woody?
I don't know. I think with Austin leaving at tight end, we have a void there, and I think that Woody can. I think it really probably depends more on guys like Michael Jobman and Kyle Finch, and how some of these young guys develop. Because I don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. I mean, I think that Woody could be a really, really good tight end in this league. He's got great hands. Talked about his explosiveness and some of those things. And so there's some respects that I'd like to move him back to offense. But a lot of that depends on how did some of these young guys progress and develop.
With Ben Folsom, was he looking for an opportunity to get in the field? Did you come to him? How did that sort of?
You know what? Ben's the guy that I mean, I don't talk about him much because, you know, he's a guy that probably isn't getting as much playing time as he would like, but he's one of my favorite guys. And one of the reasons is because when I address the team and I talk about something in particular, Like hey, what are you doing? What can you do more? Are you doing everything you can? He's the guy that walks in the door and says, Coach, I'm a third string quarterback. I need to do more. I can do more to help this team. I'm a good athlete. I can do more to help this team. And I believe it. You know, I mean, we played him a bunch on special teams in the last couple of weeks. He's covered kicks. He's been on punt return. He's obviously been a personal protector on punt. And he's shown that he can do that. And he goes down and does shuffle agilities in practice with the DBs, and you're like, I think this guy can play safety.
Would that be permanent?
I'd like to think that that's a move that he could make and make us better. You know, make us better all the way around. And so I think he's very open to it. I think he, you know, to Ben's credit, Ben doesn't, I mean, he'll do anything you ask him to. That's the type of young man that he is. But he's also a guy that, like I said, I think sees that he has some ability that he can help the team with. And I think he sees that's a place where we need some help. And so, you know, he's a guy that will get a bunch of turns this week. This is a great week for him. You know, and kind of put him in that young guy mode a little bit, like, okay, let's let him get a whole bunch of base reps and see what he can do.
You mentioned some of the younger guys training. You have a lot of young guys playing too. So when you miss that red shirt year, but then you're getting game experience, how do you weigh just kind of?
Well, that's interesting because what you sometimes see is you see those young guys that got that extra year to develop physically. They'll leapfrog some of these guys that didn't. Right. And so that's an interesting deal. And you got to, what those guys that played this year have to realize is starting in January when they get back from winter break, they have got to just eat iron. I mean, they've got to take advantage of that lost time. Now, one of the things that we've tried to do is we've tried to keep that group together all season. And so the one thing that the guys that are playing are missing is our competitive stuff, our game day lift stuff that we do with the red shirts. Everything else they train together at 6 a.m. on Tuesday and Thursday. And it's been a phenomenal group. It really has.
With a guy playing quarterback, Chris is expecting now to lead older guys. Do
Yeah.
you worry about a divide, or not divide, but do you worry about him losing some of the guys in his class?
No, I think that there's some pieces to that too. And like I said, part of the reason we've kept these guys together so much is because we want them to feel the same pain of that alarm going off at 5:30 on Tuesday and Thursday. And it's not one guy over here getting to sleep in because, you know, he's the quarterback and this other guy over here who's grinding it out. So try to level that off. Now, we don't do as much with those guys in the weight room, and their lifts are shorter, but they start kind of at the same time.
Jeff, do you ever look at the rankings and see Washington there in the top 5 and take some credit for that, take pride in what they've done?
Yeah, I've been a lot of places, and I'd like to think that I've tried to leave every place that I've worked better than I found it. And you know, I think I did that at Washington. I think walked into a situation with Coach Pete and the staff there, and we're able to kind of help flip that thing and put it in a really good spot. But at the end of the day, it's about players. You know, certainly had a hand in recruiting some of those young men, and you know, you develop a relationship with these kids now. And there's guys on that staff that I worked with for 8 years, 6 at Boise State and 2 at Washington. And so I'm a Washington fan. I'm rooting for my friends, my former colleagues, and I'm rooting for those kids that I coached. And so I don't know that I can take credit for them being a top 5 team, but I certainly root for them, and I'm happy for them.
Is Chris you worked for a number of head coaches, but would you consider him to be your mentor?
I probably pattern more things off of him than anybody because I worked for him for the longest amount of time. And I wouldn't say that we're super similar personality-wise, but I would say that we always talk about this as like, you know, I think we have the exact same core values. I think we're very similar in terms of who we are as men. We're just personality-wise different. And so, yeah, I've taken things from Mike Leach. I've taken things from Will Muschamp. I've taken things from Bob Spoo. I worked at Eastern Illinois, Nick Delaney, Nick Dennehy. But spending 8 years with one guy as your head coach, you're probably going to, that's your comfort level a little bit in terms of your routine.
You talked about understanding that this is all part of the process. It sounds like people are receptive in this building. How about outside, and what's that been like?
I don't know, because I live here and my house. And if I go to eat, I go to Livingston. So, I have to have somebody else tell me, you know, and I know I'm a lot happier because I don't try to, you know, I try to just let the outside noise go. And I've learned that over time because, I mean, even as an assistant coach, you can be in a situation where you're like, somebody's getting chippy about this and you take it personal. Well, it's not personal. You guys have a job to do, and and everybody's entitled to their opinion, and heck, when you're 2-6, I mean, there's not a lot to be real fired up about, so I get that. But I also know that our day's coming. I know our day's coming. And it's probably one of the reasons why this has been so painful, because you're just, you know, you're close. Close ain't good enough.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.